It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. It was the age of foolishness. It was the age of wisdom. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, and it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. At least that's how Charles Dickens views the society in his day. But now if we take a look at the society in which we live in today, not much has changed, because the world that we are living in is still a world that's dissected between two worldviews, a world that's still dissected between two opinions, a world that's still dissected between two ideas. I can choose to be virtuous, and I can also choose to be promiscuous more than ever. In a world where there is good, in a world where there is bad as well. In a world where we have where we have the illusion of many options, and we think we have got those many options, but fundamentally, or in reality, we just have two options, and we have to make a choice. In a world where there is the wide gate, in a world where there is the narrow gate. But I like it better when Solomon actually puts it across. He says there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but that way it leads to destruction. And I like it when it comes from Solomon, because he is one of the guys in the Bible who sympathizes with us as human beings in terms of knowing the consequences and repercussions of our choices, because he has lived in both worlds somehow. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and the verse is 1. It goes on to say, these are the words of the preacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does it profit a man, or what profit hath a man in the labor that he undertaken in the world that we live in, or under the sun? Now, if you read the book of Ecclesiastes, this is not a historical book, no. This is not a poetical book, neither is it a prophetic book, but it's a philosophical treatise. Now, when we are talking about philosophical issues, we are talking about arguments, questions, and answers that we are trying to find. Now, Solomon brings forth his argument and says, vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. And then when he talks about that, he poses a question, that what profit does a man have of all the labor that he taken in the world? So in other words, we are talking about issues of meaning and value. Now, in the world that we live in a world whereby everyone is questioning for meaning, is questioning for value. Now, Solomon says, yes, I have been there, because from the question that he asked, what labor does a man have? What profit does a man have of the labor that he does? It's actually evident of the fact that he has been through the point whereby I'm saying, whatever I do in life, it's what's going to give me meaning. The material world is what's going to give me meaning. And some of us, it's what we hold as our values and meaning. But Jesus also brings forth the question and says, what profit, what does a man gain? What does it profit a man if he gains the what? The whole world and loses his own soul. In other words, Jesus is adding an element to it. Solomon didn't add the point whereby he is equating or measuring the two. Okay, we have the material and we have the immaterial. But Solomon is saying, but Jesus is saying, what profit? He brings the same question again. What profit has a man if he gains the whole world, but at the end of the day, just to lose his own soul? Now, Jesus is asking a question as well. And the answer that we are going to get, maybe we can get it from the book of Ecclesiastes as we continue to unfold it. Now Solomon says, okay, I have asked that question about meaning and about value. Then he starts talking. The sun goes back, the sun goes up and it also goes back down to where it came from. The rivers flow, but they are never full. He talks about so many things, that life is a cycle. Life has its own way to do things. That which has happened in the past is what will happen in the future. Basically, that's what Solomon is saying. He now says everyone is working under the sun, but all is in vanity. All is in vain. Now he says, in my quest for finding that which is meaningful, in my quest for finding that which has value, Solomon, then the Bible says, he did a few experiments. He said, I studied everything that I could study in this world, but all was vexation of the spirit. All was in vain. Solomon goes on to say, another experiment that he did. He says, I went through and across the world trying to find pleasure and enjoy myself, but little did I find, did I know, that there is nothing. All was in vain. All was in vain. Then the Bible continues to talk about so many things and so many things as we go downwards. Chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes, Solomon keeps on saying, all is vanity, all is of no use, all is meaningless. And then when I read the Bible and when I look at the world that we are living in, I find that Solomon is not the only one who was in this restless situation. Because all of us in this world that we are living in, we are all in this restless situation whereby we are trying to find meaning, whereby we are trying to find value even of our lives. As you are seated here, some of you don't even know why really you came to church. If we really ask deeper questions about your being and your sincerity and your authenticity in terms of coming to church, you don't even know. Now Solomon is asking such questions. But then what is the meaning of it? Why are you living here? Have you gotten to ask yourself that? Now we are in this restless situation. When you go to read the book of Genesis chapter 1 and the verses 26, it then says, then God said, let us make man in our own image, in our own likeness. And God gave man dominion and we know the whole passage. And the point that I'm trying to get in there is that the point where we are saying we are finding meaning, we are trying to find something that's of value. It was taken from us when we lost it in Eden. The image of God is what actually, we are in this identity crisis as individuals or as a church rather, because we lost it in the Garden of Eden. The image of God that was in us could only be maintained as we maintain the relationship that we had with God. Now, after Adam and Eve had sinned, they lost their glory and they lost the image that God had given them in Eden. And now we are in this identity crisis because of such issues. Now, if you read psychological books and psychological facts, you will find out that identity crisis, its roots is from having broken relationships. Okay, let me try to explain that. And then we start from a social point of view, then we'll go to a spiritual point of view. Then when you get to ask any psychologist or any psychotherapist, they will tell you that as you grow as a child, the mother is the one who gives the child the first experience that they will have as they grow into teenagehood and into adulthood. So many of us are facing an identity crisis. So many of us are facing the situations that are facing as women and as men because of the relationship that we had when we were growing up. So if our relationship was not good with our mother, or with our father, or with our family per se, if our relationship was not good, the Bible, actually psychologists then go on to say that's when the child has little self-esteem. And if you have little self-esteem, that's then you develop this identity crisis, trying to find everything that you find on your way so that you actually you build up for that self-esteem that is not there. Now, I don't know what really happened, but in the world I live in, so many of us, especially the youth, are broken. And as we are broken, you will find that so many times the things that we do, we don't even understand. Because the things that we do are based solely on trying to actually build ourselves up because of the brokenness that we have. We have such low self-esteem. You don't like listening to a certain type of music because it's nice and fun, but it's because you want to be socially relevant with the group that you are associated with. You wear the clothes that you wear, not because you want to cover your nakedness. Basically, that's the reason why we wear clothes, and so that we cover our nakedness. But then it goes on to a further reasoning in your life, because what we are saying is that we try to accumulate so many of those things because we are trying to build up ourselves socially. Now it goes on as well to this kind of syndrome and nature comes in the church as well, whereby reading certain passages makes you feel a bit knowledgeable and a bit. You get what I'm saying? Now we do some of those things, some of those behaviors, not because they are motivated by genuineness, but because we are trying to build ourselves up. We are trying to cover for the image of God that has been lost and that has been broken. And basically, that's the dilemma of the human nature. Because when you read the book of Romans, when Paul is talking, there are things that I want to do, but I find myself not doing them at the end of the day. Good things that I find myself not doing. What's happening? Then Paul is in this dilemma that we are talking about. And it's the same dilemma that actually Charles Dickens was putting out across. And it's the same dilemma that actually Solomon is going through. It seems like there are these two sides, and I'm swayed to and fro. And I'm trying to make a choice. And basically life is about choices. But unfortunately, in the world we live in a consumeristic world in such a manner that there are many choices out there, and we are blinded to what is authentic and what is genuine and what is real. We end up taking everything that's there. So basically, Solomon is saying we are yearning for more. We are yearning for relevance. That's why he says some of us, we want to be remembered. We want to leave a legacy. We want to be wealthy. We want to be powerful. But then Solomon says, yes, I tried all this and tried to find out all this, and by all means, but I failed. Why? Because as human beings, material things can quench our thirst. That's why Jesus then goes on to say, what profiteth a man if he gains the whole world? Basically, Jesus knows the best for us. He knows that at the end of the day, even if you have all those things that you have, then Solomon goes on to say, even if you have all those things that you have in your house or in wherever you are, you have a good job, you have everything, then God is the one who can give you the capacity to enjoy it. That's the point. You may have it all, but God gives you the capacity to enjoy those things. Because you might have them, but you can't enjoy them. And it's there. And the insurance thought is really good. It's there. So Solomon is talking about these issues of meaning and value. What has meaning? What has value in your life? If it's in material things, check again and do an investigation. Search yourself. And then repurpose your goals. Repurpose your direction. Then he goes on to say, in this meaninglessness, actually meaninglessness is associated with the mismanagement of time. Basically, I think that's why he writes there, he goes on to write the chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes. There is a season and there is a what? There is a time for everything. There is a time to laugh, there is a time to cry. There is a time to live, and there is a time to what? To die. There is a time to laugh, and there is a time to hate. In other words, everything has got its own time. Solomon is talking about priorities. As we are talking about issues of meaning and value, we are saying priorities are the most important thing. Don't just do everything because everyone is doing everything. Have a time to do certain things. Have a time not to do this. Have a time not to do that. Basically, it's reminding us that time is the most important factor that God has given us as a blessing, as humanity. Use your time wisely. Basically, I'm saying things that you already know. It's just reminding ourselves of what is actually kosher as we live our lives on this earth, as human beings. There is a time to do everything. So manage your time. Have a time to study the Bible. Have a time to socialize with people. Have a time to evangelize. Have a time to go and work and do meaningful things in your life. Have a time for what? For each and everything. Don't just live without a schedule. Some of us, if not most of us, it's evident enough that sometimes in our own lives, we don't even have a schedule because of the way we live, especially when it comes to spiritual matters. Now Paul says, knowing this, that it's high time so that we what? We awake out of what? Out of sleep. Because the time has gone. And Jesus is about to come. That's particularly part of time, being time conscious. Knowing that the time is what? Has gone. And what are you doing with it? Basically, salvation is now nearer than it was before. Then the Bible goes on to say in Revelation chapter 12, the devil also knows his what? His time. Let us not forget that we are in this great controversy. These two dissecting opinions, these two dissecting worldviews. The devil is bringing his, and God is saying, I have mine. But then, what at the end of the day are we going to do about it? Jesus is saying, know your time, because the devil knows his time. And basically that's how he is fighting. Like, it's a disturbing issue that I was actually reading about. Paul says in Romans chapter 6, verse 12, we are not fighting against what? Flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers in higher places. Then I got to try to we don't usually talk about this in our church, especially the nature of angels and how they work, or the nature of fallen angels, that is demons. If we knew how those guys actually work, if we knew, and actually God has actually told us and put it plain in the Bible, if we knew how they work tirelessly, we wouldn't be playing with our salvation as we are usually doing. Satan seems to be omnipresent just because of the way of demons, but he is not omnipresent. He seems to be, he is working tirelessly. And there is everyone in every place that's doing this and that's doing that. We were talking about the world system that is actually motivated by the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet. And basically, we were talking more on politics. But the simplest of it is actually when the devil works through music. Because it's one of the issues that brings people to conversion. And one of the preliminary things that actually was created was the issue of social media platforms. It's easy now to actually what again? To convert. Now that's Satan waking up and putting his systems in place. Because in the world where we are living in, there is little about knowing about God and doing God's work than it is about actually doing the devil's work. They are working in music. He knows his time. They are working in movies. He knows his time. I will not try to enter into the nitty-gritties of everything, but I think it has been actually said by a lot of people and by a lot of sermons telling us that this is bad for us, this is not good for us, this is what is actually right for us. We know. And Paul then says, how to then I motivate the spirit man that is actually using the battery to the carnal man? Paul says, feed the spirit man more than you feed the carnal man. You cannot conquer whatever you are battling with if you still feed your mind with stuff that actually makes you defeated at the end of the day. You cannot. If you want to conquer whatever you want to conquer, whether it's an addiction, whether it's what, you have to set your mind to things that are above. You have to feed the spiritual man more than you feed the carnal man. It's a great controversy that we are in. We talked about that. And the one and only thing that God desires, or that the devil desires, is that you make a choice. But now God doesn't work by force. God doesn't coerce as the devil does. But God works in love. So what we are saying at the end of the day is that prioritize your time. Feed the spiritual man more than you feed the carnal man. Now Solomon goes on to talk about moral values when you go to chapter 4 and 5. Talking about the injustice that is found in the world. Actually, moral values are what we call gratitude, honesty, love, peace, joy, things like that, right? But then in the world we live in, it has been inflated by the devil, whereby people are motivated by greed. Basically, that's what he's talking about, Kuna chapter 4, going onwards. Talking about greed and talking about people who work tirelessly, not because they want genuinely to feed their families and friends, but because they want to be seen at the end of the day. Just because they want to what? To upgrade their social status. So God is saying at the end of the day, as he is looking at everything, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What then does it profit a man? Then he goes on to conclude and say, this is the conclusion of the matter. I cut it short. Can't do the whole book in such a short period of time. But he then goes on to say, this is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and give him what? And give him the glory. Every work that you do, he now talks about accountability. Every work that you do under the sun is going to be put on the what? On the weight, and it's going to be weighed. Will you be found wanting, or at the end of the day? Many take remember the story, right? So God is saying at the end of the day, this is the conclusion of the matter. I'm trying to simplify it for you. God is saying that. Good, okay. You may want to do all these things, but this is the end of it. This is the end of it. Make a wise choice. Make a wise decision to actually know what to follow and what not to follow. Because there are many options out there in the world. And there are many philosophies that have been created so that at the end of the day, you follow the other side. That's not done for you. Fear God and give glory unto him. For the hour of his judgment has come. Revelation chapter 14. It's the time that we are living in. Names are getting in, names are getting out. And God is saying, I still want him in my kingdom. I still want Foya in my kingdom. I still want Darren in my kingdom. I still want all of you in my kingdom. That's what God is saying. It's what God faced when he talked to, when you read the book of Job. God says, have you seen my servant Job, who follows me very faithfully? And then the devil says, he does that because you have given him what? Things. That's why he is following you. Take away everything that he has, and you actually see the true nature of Job. But then we know the story. The devil takes everything, but not his life. But then Job, as we read through, he stays faithful and God rewards him at the end of the day. Now this is what is happening behind the scenes. The devil, God is saying, have you seen my servant, so and so? Have you seen my servant, so and so? But then Ukatari is a servant judge. Then God is disappointed at the end of the day. God is embarrassed at the end of the day for the faith that he put in you as an individual. Let's choose wisely. Let's choose rightly. God wants us in his kingdom. And God is talking to us today. God, choose wisely. Choose well. It is the world that has the end, that has the narrow gate. It's the world that has the what? That has the wider gate. It is the world that has God. It is the world again that has memory. Wherever your heart is, wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be as well. Choose wisely today. Joshua then goes on to say, who are you going to serve? Is it God or is it Baal? Elijah is asked the same thing, or actually asked the same thing. Who are you going to what? To follow. So at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, there will not be a point of neutrality at any moment. You will either have to go this side, or you either have to go that side. Because there is no point of neutrality when it comes to issues of meaning and value. Basically, you have to make a decision and choice, whether to live for God or not to live for God. So God bless you.